Japan is one of the influential and most developed economies, and it has a well-educated workforce, as its large and affluent population makes it one of the largest consumer markets in the world. With the phenomenal economic revival from the ashes and tears of World War II, Japan was one of the first Asian countries to reach the value chain from cheap textiles to advanced manufacturing and services that make up the bulk of it today. Japan's famous post-war education system has made a significant contribution to the modernization process. The world's highest literacy rate and high education level are the main reasons for Japan's successful technologically advanced economy. Japanese schools also encourage discipline, which is another benefit of building an effective workforce. The Korean War marked the turn from the economic crisis to the recovery of Japan. As a staging zone for the United Nations Armed Forces on the Korean Peninsula, Japan benefited indirectly from the war as valuable orders for goods and services were placed with Japanese suppliers. After its return from independence in 1952, the Japanese economy found itself in a process of growth and change. Persistent prosperity and high annual growth rates, which averaged 10% from 1955 to 1960 and then rose to over 13%, hence, changed all areas of Japanese life. The countryside, where farmers had benefited from land reform, began to feel the effects of small-scale mechanization and a continuous migration to industrial centers. Agricultural yields rose as improved crops and modern technologies were introduced, as home appliances emerged in remote villages, and as changing patterns of food consumption in urban areas created an expanded market for crops, fruits and vegetables, and meat products. Two elements underscored the rapid growth during 1960s. The first was the development of a consumer economy that was given a huge boost by Ikeda Hayato's 1960 income doubling plan, which affirmed government responsibility for well-being and growth for both consumers and the producers. This plan reaffirmed the government's responsibility for social welfare, trainings, and education, which was a milestone to build the national economy. The second was the new industrial policy that emerged in 1959 from the Ministry of Trade and Industry, MITI. Under these influences, the structure of the Japanese economy changed towards high-quality and high-tech products for domestic and foreign consumption. By the 1980s, the Japanese economy had grown to be one of the largest and most advanced in the world. Per capita income had surpassed that of the United States, and total gross national product was about 1/10 of world production. It became net creditor country and largest donor of development aid. The prosperity of this nation was associated with its trade. The Japanese economy continued to stagnate, hovering between economic recession and anemic growth as the country entered the 21st century. Unemployment, which is still relatively low in comparison to the Western countries, rose sharply and in 2000 exceeded 5% for the first time in the post-war period. The prime ministers of the 1990s and the beginning of the 21st century called for comprehensive economic reforms, in particular deregulation. Noteworthy are the sweeping reforms, dubbed the Big Bang, proposed by Hashimoto Ritara, who served as prime minister during 1996 to 1998, in the areas of administration, finance, social security, the economy, monetary system, and education. The measures were supported by Hashimoto's successor. The economy also faced some challenges, particularly due to a rapidly aging population and rising income disparities. Although the connection with the United States remained the axis of Japan's external relations, Japan oriented its economy to better integrate with that of the Asian economic bloc. When the United States struggled with its own excesses, Japan discovered a new way of managing economy of the country, which is a low inflation system that established stability. The Japanese seem to have discovered that their national well-being can be achieved even if relative economic prosperity declines. The population seems ready to make common sacrifices in order to maintain steadiness. Elements of daily life that they consider to be the most important are harmony and social order, security, and environmental health. Given that leading economists' definition of economic success has to do with steady growth, how is it that under the radar Japan has braved the adversity and has achieved steady prosperity in recent years, without the harmful and inevitable excesses of volatility? With a unique search for one thing that stands out immediately are the low birth rates and immigration. It is unclear how much of this is based on conscious politics. Another thing that seems to be helping them is that the yen is not a reserve currency. Despite Japan's domestic level of debt, the yen continued to gain strength. Another factor is that, despite its shock 20 years ago after the housing bubble burst, its banking system and savings rate remain strong and vibrant. So Japan does not have to worry about the actions of foreign lender in politics or any international influences. The banking system of Japan. The banking system of Japan has been proven to be best to serve public wisely and make good profit from there. One of the basic elements of the Japanese financial system is very similar to that of other large developed countries, a commercial banking system that accepts deposits, lends to companies, and handles foreign exchange as specialized government financial institutions. The banks provide funds for various sectors of the national economy. Also provides brokerage services, securities companies that provide guarantees for corporate and government securities, and trade in the capital markets. The banking system of Japan facilitates with the opportunities which offer the means to finance public and private debt and to sell residual corporate ownerships along with the money markets, which offer banks a source of liquidity to provide the Bank of Japan with a tool to implement monetary policy. Oil crisis became an opportunity. In the mid-1970s, Japan faced serious economic problems. The oil crisis in 1973 shook the economy, and the economy began to rely on imported oil. Japan experienced its first industrial recession after the war with strong price inflation and declining production. The recovery that followed the first oil crisis revived the optimism of most business leaders, but maintaining industrial growth in the face of high energy costs required changes in the industrial structure. Despite the high investment costs, many energy-intensive industries were able to reduce dependence on oil and increase productivity in the late 1970s and 1980s. The final result of this adjustment is the improvement of manufacturing energy efficiency and the expansion of knowledge-intensive industries. Then the industries expanded in the post-industrial economy. However, as the economy matured in the late 1970s and 1980s, with an annual growth rate of only 4% to 6%, structural economic changes did not prevent economic growth from slowing down. But in a country where oil is expensive and natural resources are limited, these numbers were astonishing. For example, Japan's average growth rate in the late 1980s was 5%, much higher than 3.8% of the United States. Although oil prices soared further in 1979, Japan's growth slowed in the mid-1980s. But its continued boom in economic demand in the late 1980s achieved the estimated goal. The most outstanding fact about the Japan's economic revolution is that the extraordinary prosperity has been achieved with the conditions of almost having no mineral resources. The country has developed one of the world's most powerful economies based entirely on imported raw materials, devoted citizens, intelligent technology, and far-sighted financial structure. So, how do you analyze the economic structure of Japan? Leave your thoughts in the comments section below. Thank you for watching. Subscribe our channel World Facts to support us, and like this video as well. See you in another video. Cheers!